13 Questions by Man Transcending. Manhood in the Digital Age. Welcome back to 13 Questions. How's it going, Mr. Bill?
I am doing wonderful.
Tonight we had Mike Romanelli on. Mike works with Sam Tripoli, running a comedy club in New Jersey, among many other things. This is a good one. I know you were excited about this one.
Yeah, he runs the Comedy Dojo, and I'm a huge stand-up comedy fan in general, have been for a number of years. And I came across Mark's podcast through Alt Media United, which is a podcast community co-op organization that Mark Palmer Steves Jr. puts on, which we've had as a guest. That's altmediaunited.com. He curates that list of like-minded podcasts and other information, kind of like what I'm trying to do with the website, with the Find Your Tribe, but he's doing a much better job. So same concept though, networking. It's great, doing a great job over there. So go check that out. So yeah, that's where I found Mike Romanelli's podcast through, which is Free Thinkers Society. And yeah, so I reached out and Mike said yes to come on the show, and I knew, it was going to be a good time. It was, hit on a lot of good points. And yeah, what did you think, Adam?
No, all of the above. It was, just to tack on to what you were saying with the comedy. I mean, it was great. The perspective from the comedy world, especially in the world that we're in. Yeah, it was really fun. It's a good episode.
So, aside from that, we do have one jingle that we have managed to add to the show to bring some continuation to it, and that is created by Sir Felix Ortega, and it is our gratitude jingle. Adam, do you have the gratitude jingle ready to go?
Gratitude, 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 oh gratitude. Gratitude, 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 oh gratitude.
Okay, so I'm actually taking my gratitude from our friend Blake Art, who does the realityredesign.com website, and he came up with 13 tenets, which he posted on Twitter. And the number 2 tenet of his 13 is called A Ritual for a New Age. And this is kind of a continuation of the gratitude jingle, actually, of the whole gratitude practice. So we like to generate this feeling of gratitude, at least I do, or try to, at least once a day, usually in the morning. And it can be kind of a challenge to kind of keep that with us as we move throughout our day. So I've been doing what our friend Blake Art has coined a ritual for a new age, and he writes on his Twitter post that this ritualizes the act of using the restroom, cleansing your mind and spirit of the negativity of any evil action, and flushing them down the drain, physically and symbolically. And he ties it into a Bible verse, and there's some really cool artwork with some Fibonacci sequence stuff on the side, and a little prayer that he came up with. You don't have to memorize the prayer or anything, at least I didn't. But I think that just taking a moment while you take a moment to be thankful can help us continue to carry that through, that feeling continuously with us throughout the day. So that's something I've been finding myself doing more and more lately. So
it reminds me very much of the guest tonight speaking, Mike, talking about falling asleep and, going through your gratitudes and your list, and it being a way to not only help you sleep, but just kind of lull you into positivity.
Yeah, he came up with a really cool, the A to Z gratitude exercise. That's super neat. You guys will hear about that in the interview more. But yeah, just another tip, trick, thing that I found helpful and has been working for me. So I thought I'd share it with you guys. Yeah. So Adam, what did you come up with for your gratitude?
It's something that I've hinted on before, so maybe I'm rebrushing, but I'll be more specific. It's knowledge of body, like mind, the ability to know your world in a way to positively influence yourself. I think of the glasses that I wear. Got a special pair of glasses. They're not just like blue blocking, but they're for migraine. They block very specific wavelengths of light. They're a little more expensive. But just having the knowledge that there can be wavelengths of light that can negatively impact me, and being able to have the foresight, the knowledge, the technology to access and utilize that, knowing about nutrition and certain things that are going to impact neurologic issues, the foods, the plants, the medicines, all of these things, just being able to have access to knowledge in the world that can give you benefit through utilizing the physical things around you. So I'm very grateful that we have that. Even if you just think in, the simplest of ways in my mind of like that, it's very much the same as like a loincloth, as being, this very, integral piece of hygiene and, bringing us into a modern world that, safety glasses, allow you to complete tasks you couldn't do before without, risking, at a time, losing eyesight is essentially a death sentence. So, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that, but I'm super thankful to be in a world where we can utilize that knowledge to mitigate some of the ills of the world.
Yeah, it's kind of what we're all about here on, well, at least I hope to be all about on this show, is practical pearls of wisdom. It's, utilizing something that you can implement, some bit of knowledge in your life, some practical, and, turn it into a practical, whatever it may be, apply it is the point, right? So, yeah. Other than that, as far as other show updates go, check out the website. Continue to check back there. Blake, Art, and I, and Adam, and 13 Questions, we're all continuing to collaborate together. So more updates to come on the website, which, if you don't know already, it does host the Question 3 book catalog, which is all of the answers to the Question 3 book question that all the guests have given on the show thus far. So that's pretty interesting book list to check out. And the last thing, I guess, is this is a value for value labor of love. So this is not a free show. If you find value out of these types of conversations, we ask that you share the show. Just tell someone else about it. Send them an episode that you found interesting, or if you want to, you can make a one-time donation or sign up for a recurring, or all the above.
Send the value, whatever you feel it is worth to you, the benefit that you've gained, and help the show grow. We're open to new questions, modifying questions, your guest ideas. Our guests are through, vastly becoming, recommendations, and, you can help us grow. We can only, touch and speak to the people that are within our, mindset and group set, and you are a bigger piece of that puzzle. So, help us spread that knowledge, bring in more avenues, more unique points of view.
And with that, this is 13 Questions with Mike Romanelli Jr. Question number 1. What was the best advice ever given to you? Would you modify it at all today?
Best advice ever given to me was at a young age. It's kind of it was intended as business advice. It was given to me by my father, and we own restaurants in my family. So we're in the restaurant business, bar business, and it's very common for other places to pop up everywhere. So my dad would always pull me in and say, all that matters are these four walls. He'd constantly remind me that all that matters is these four walls. Doesn't matter how busy the guy is next door. It doesn't matter what they're doing. And I used to think it was so stupid when I was younger. Like, of course we have to know what the competition is doing. Of course we have to. I was always so worried about everyone else. And that advice was so important to me. I use it constantly, and it's grown past my business. I use it in every business that I've ever had, and then I use it also with my family, my home. My home life. It's the only thing that matters is these four walls, and that's all I got to take care of. And it's a lot deep. It sounds silly, but it's a lot deeper when you really start thinking about what that actually means. When you're raising a family, it could be about keeping up with the Joneses, right? It could be all kinds of stuff. But I've realized that with that advice, if I take care of my side of the street, or I take care of my house, for the most part, my life's going to be pretty good, or my business is going to flourish much better. If I got 1 foot in and 1 foot out, and I'm so worried about competition, or I'm so worried about whatever it is, the Joneses next door, it can really mess with you, and then you're fixated on something that you have no control over. So I think that's some of the best advice my father ever could have given me, and as I get older, I'm just using it more and more.
Yeah, it's very stoic. It reminds me very much of Stoicism in that you're very aware of your circle of influence and versus your circle of concern, which is generally our circle of concern is bigger than our circle of influence. So it fits, our circle of influence fits inside of the concern, and being aware of what you have control over, like within the four walls. Yep. Like it reminds me of very much of Stoicism. I like it. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's funny how things work out too, right? Like when I was young, I just thought it was so dumb all the time. And it's just, I'm constantly parroting that to all my employees, to my kids. It's funny how things like that happen, right? Where something so simple, you think about it years and years, and it turns into really like a philosophy in business for myself.
Yeah, it's something I've been actually kind of thinking about lately, is just with time. Like sometimes, it takes time to, like, for perspective. And so, like, as we get older, you look back at these younger things, it's like, wait a second.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I've been doing the same thing in my life. Perspective with some time. Absolutely.
All right. Question number 2. What do you choose to ignore?
So, once again, man, with my business, a big thing that so like I said, I've ran bars, I've ran nightclubs, I was in the music industry for years. And what I always chose to ignore, which I know it sounds stupid, but it is what I always I always ignored that whole Playboy lifestyle, and using my, by me having a bar, by me being the owner, using that to get women, and that whole part of me, it was never part of my life. And I just, not that I ignore women. I love my wife, and I've had a couple partners in my life that I've had long relationships with, but I've seen so many people in this industry, in the bar business, in the club business, so many people go down the road of just chasing tail, and for me, it's like the second you become an employee, you work for me, you're family. So I just, it almost becomes like I just learned to train myself that way, and I just ignored all the beautiful women that I've been around, and I've been around a lot of beautiful women my whole life since I'm young now until I'm in my 40s now, and I get comments, and it's funny because by doing that, I have a comedy club here. I don't know if you guys know about that, but we have a comedy club here, and the comics made a comment to me the other day, like, the way they treat the waitresses, they don't make the comments or anything. They're like, because we saw that from you. And that's always been my intention, right? Because I try to lead by example, always. And and comics are, I love hanging out with comics. But that's their job, right? They say a lot of crazy shit, and it never happens here. They don't ever make the girls that work here feel uncomfortable. And I really believe it's because I've always taken that approach. And it's not that I don't love women, but I just don't. That whole part of my life and my business is not something. It's just something I just turned off. Just never chased that whole Playboy life. And like I've said, I've seen so many guys with probably way more successful businesses than mine crash and burn because they that's all they wanted was that life. So I'm pretty grateful that I chose to ignore that.
And I think I saw on your bio that, and I think you mentioned that you're second generation owner,
Mhm.
club owner.
Yes.
So you grew up around this, like, can you, and everything. So I don't know, this blows my mind. I've never get to talk to anybody in this position before. So like second, what does that mean? Like,
Yeah, so I was born into it. So yeah, I was born into this completely. So my father, he comes from an immigrant family, and he this was our restaurant was totally his thing. He brought from, he started from the ground up, and second generation, meaning, I took over, and I was born. I don't know any different, and I really tried to get out of this business many times. The restaurant business. I went to culinary school. It was always my backup. I was in music for years, producing music events. I had a very small indie record label. I specialized in like drum and bass, so I was always in that electronic music scene my whole life. And my partner in music, he passed on, and when he passed on, I said, I'm not doing this. And the restaurant was always my hustle, my side hustle, right? Because with the arts, with music, or we'll just use music as an example, it takes years. You may never make money. So I always used the restaurant as my side hustle, whether it was early on cooking, then I started waiting tables, and I also went to culinary school because I always just kind of had it in the back of my head because my sister really wanted nothing to do with it, and I knew like someday this place might be mine. So I just, I did take care of it. And then I've tried to get out so many times. I tried to get out of the bar scene, and I opened up like a grass-fed organic hamburger restaurant, and realized that it is probably the worst business idea ever, because how much you have to charge for, like, you're trying to give off the fast food vibe, but you got to charge too much. And it was amazing. It was beautiful. People still talk about how great the burgers were, but you just couldn't make a buck. But I tried to get out. I was kind of done with the bar business, kind of done with that whole lifestyle, getting home so late. But my father was about to retire. He sold, he had quite a few restaurants. He sold most of them, and he had his two originals left that he had no partners with. There was just his two originals. And he said, Mike, please, before you make this decision, just do me a favor. You got to fix my kitchens for me. And so I went into the restaurant, and he wasn't kidding. These kitchens were really messed up. And I went in there and I started cleaning the kitchen up. It took about a year. And now he's already in another state. And, I'm taking over this restaurant, and I went in every single day. It was rough trying to get this kitchen in order. And I got it in order. Like I said, it took about a year. And now we're at the point where, okay, the food is good. And I kind of got my feet wet again, like back into it. It's funny. It's like almost like what they say. And I don't know if it was one of those gangster movies where, like, you try to get out and it sucked you back in. And I'm back in here, and it's like a year goes by, and it's like, okay, how do we get more asses in the seats? And I'm sitting up in we have a banquet room. I'm sitting up there. I said, I don't know how it even came out. I said, guys, why don't you try comedy? Why don't we try comedy? And nobody was paying attention to it. So I kind of threw it out there, throughout the universe. We're going to do comedy. I had no idea it was so hard to crack into the comedy community. So have all these emails out, and nothing's really happening. And somehow along the line, I meet some woman, and she becomes my booker, and we start doing like a dinner show, little comedy thing. And it got me so excited. We would start doing it, right? And she would book, and I could own up to this. I started micromanaging this woman. I started telling her, your flyer doesn't look right. It's really, and I was probably, and one day she had enough. And I said, you really should probably book this person. And I started doing my homework, and I used to throw music events. So it was very similar to constructing an event, but I'm just doing it. It was so much easier too, because all I needed is microphone. There's no lasers, there's no lights. There's pretty much just one headliner. Maybe you're going to book 3. So it was very simple. But I started I didn't like the way she was doing things, and I probably was kind of rude. And one day she says over the phone, why don't you just do this yourself? And I did. And I don't know how familiar you guys are with Sam Tripoli, but I had Sam Tripoli booked at this time. And and I wasn't talking to him the whole time. She booked him. He flies over here, and the two of us hit it off. At that point, I was never thought about doing a podcast. Never told anyone my crazy, I guess you call them conspiracies. I don't know what you want to call them, what my thoughts on all that kind of stuff. And he sat there, and it was like a person I knew my whole life, and I just spilled everything to him. And he was like, dude, this is the perfect room. I want to start expanding. He had a little room in Hollywood called the Dojo, and he said, I want to start expanding. I need an East Coast thing. And like literally that day, he just said, would you mind using that name and trying it out? And I took that and I ran. And I don't even know how much time, maybe 6-7 months went by. I went out to LA and I really even contact Sam much and just showed him all the progress and all the stuff I was doing. And all of a sudden we got this big comedy club. And I don't know, I kind of went off on a tangent of second generation, but I was so done with this business and I hated it. But somehow comedy brought now I love this place. I'm here too much. I'm here first thing in the morning. I'm the last one to leave. I'm and it's the whole thing. I'm back in the kitchen. I'm back creating. It sparked the comedy, sparked something. And not to also mention what's been going on the last couple of years. So we had to do speakeasy, underground comedy. I think they give me a little too much credit, some of these comedians, about what I was doing these last couple of years. But I was just trying to keep this thing going. And we were one of the only people around that I had like one or two other friends. But there was no shows when we were really locked down, and we were pumping out some of these legendary shows. And it just got my juices flowing. It got me going again, because I really was just kind of, I'm gonna be honest, and I'm always honest, man. I try to be as honest as I can when I do these podcasts. I was done. It wasn't my thing. This is my father's thing, but here I am. I'm 40 years old. What am I going to do? Go work for Amazon? I didn't know what I was going to do. I have a family. I'm like, so I was kind of stuck, but I took this little spark that Sam gave me and ran with it. And like I said, I love it. I love it. I can't stop. So we went from a banquet room to now it's a full comedy club. That room is no more, we don't use it for weddings and things. Every once in a while, but we are doing sometimes 5 shows a week here. And it just sparked my interest. And now I do see this long-term. I do see my kids taking this over. I see this becoming a 100-year restaurant, where I really thought maybe, all right, once my dad hands me the keys, maybe I'll just sell this place and go figure it out. But yeah, so I know that was a very long rant.
No, thank you. That was awesome. You answered some of my questions I had. So when did you, I guess my first question would be a follow-up question. What kind of relationship did you have with comedy before you started hosting it? Like, were you a fan? Did you know of comedians, in general?
So when it comes, I know I love comedy. I loved comedy as a kid, right? So it goes back like this. When I was very young, there was a restaurant comedy club called Rascals Comedy Club in West Orange. It's one of the, obviously you have your Comedy Store in the cellar, but in New Jersey, hands down, the most legendary place. You're talking Andrew Dice Clay performed there. Eddie Murphy, ran Raw through there. Sam Kinison, you name it, right? In that era of greatness, this restaurant turned comedy club. So my father, I would hear him and his friends on Sundays when they were watching football talking about, laughing so hard about, when they left the restaurant, they went to Rascals, and I would go in my father's car and steal Andrew Dice Clay tapes and stuff that I should not, as an 8 or 9-year-old, should not have been listening to. And I would steal them from his car and listen to them and laugh, and then show all my friends. And I would just consume whatever stand-up I could, and it was because I heard my old man talking about it, his friends. So I thought it was cool. And then as I got older, music took over, and I always loved to laugh. Always enjoyed funny movies. But really, I don't know. I stopped watching stand-up, let's say. I think until I started throwing the shows. I think the last show I saw, I think I saw Jim Gaffigan, and it was because my wife's family brought us as a thing. I was not tuned into stand-up at all. Somehow, some way, I was listening to, I believe it was like Ellis on Faction or something, and I heard Sam Tripoli, and he's had a lot of the same crazy thoughts I had, and I started listening to Tinfoil Hat, and from there, I became like I believe he just started the podcast right when I started listening, right? And I'm like, yeah. So I started listening to that, and then from there, I in the early days he had a lot of comedians on. So then I start, then I found Duncan Trussell, and I found all these guys, and I started getting interested in stand up again. And really, to be honest with you, it was just when I said let's do comedy, I was just spitballing with ideas on how can we just get more asses in the seats, right? Like right now downstairs we have trivia going. You just do all kinds of weird, things just on your off nights. So it was really just and what would happen here, like we're more of a family place. So Saturday nights by 9, 10 o'clock, this place was a ghost town. And it blew my mind because every other place I owned were packed on a Saturday. So I was like, we got to get people in here, some life on a Saturday. So that's where comedy came. Once she did her first show, I mean, I'm addicted to the whole, I'm addicted to producing an event, right? I've thrown countless amounts of concerts and raves. I mean, that was my thing. And I like taking a raw space and turning it in. Like, I love taking the rawest space possible and turning it over into like a music venue, let's say. So, and I haven't done that in years. I mean, have not done that in probably a decade. So when we started doing the comedy, I started realizing, okay, yeah, we had to set up a stage. We had to get lights. It started reminding me of those old days. And then I started watching. And then another thing that happened is around that time, I started 4 or 5 years ago was my first show. And around that time, free speech was being attacked. I mean, it still is. But at that time, it was really being attacked. And a lot of comedians would say to me, what's on, what am I allowed to say? And I would laugh at them and say, what? And I didn't even realize it was a real thing. I said, oh, man, just be funny. I mean, just do whatever you want. I don't care. That's your show. I'm just the guy with the bar here. Like, and so that kind of caught. And so I got caught up in that also for a while. The fight of the free speech, the fight of getting not just what I agree with. I've had to sit through some stuff where maybe I don't agree with the guy's saying or the girl's saying, but she's funny, he's funny. And that's the thing about free speech, right? You got to fight for all of it, not just what you like. And so that became a little a factor. And then from there, I started consuming all types of stand-up, old stand-up, new stand-up. In that time, I became friends with Sam Tripoli. I would come meet him, and I would stay at the Comedy Store from when it opened until literally we were the last people there, like a fly, and in and out of every room, and just watching it, and go to all different clubs in LA and then some clubs in New York, and just be a fly on the wall, observe. And now I'm so deep into it, it's really kind of crazy. I mean, it's nuts. That's all I'm doing now is booking shows, and so that's how I got at an early age, but then recently got back into the whole stand-up thing.
What do you think is the thing that hooks you with comedy that nothing, that the other things didn't do, that makes it different?
So it's laughter, man. It's laughter. So it took me 40 years to figure out how much I love laughter, how much I love to see people laugh, how much I love to laugh, how important it is. When I was a kid, my dad, I keep referencing my father, which is weird because I don't really talk about him much on podcasts, but that's okay. When he would say to me, Mike, if you had a blank slate, what would you do? If you could, before I go to college, just figure it out. It could be as crazy as you want. He'd always kind of instill in me that you could do anything type thing, right? And I don't know. I'd say, I don't know, maybe make cartoons. And like, that's another thing that just clicked. We talk about time of perspective. It's like, holy shit, this whole time, it's always been laugh. Like I will never get on the stage. If I can make a comedian laugh, I'm good. If I could get a chuckle out of a comedian, which it happens, and it's like, yes, I'm never getting on the stage for many reasons. But if I figured that out in my 20s, I would be grinding. I would have been grinding, doing the comedy thing for sure. I would have been for sure. But I found my way into comedy. It's so important, man. And right now more than ever, it is so important. I mean, every show we get somebody that pulls me aside and said, that was the first time I haven't laughed like that in the last 2 years. And as soon as I get that said to me, all the hard work, all the hours, it's all worth it. It's all worth it, right? For that because laughter, it's medicine, man. It feels so good to laugh. People think I'm a serious person, but their first opinion of me, but No, man, I love to be silly and laugh, and it's so I just there's nothing better in my opinion. And
Yeah.
it's such
Not
a
only can
rewarding
people
thing.
not get out to experience comedy, but the way that the world is, you're not allowed to say certain things. So you
Yeah.
can't laugh at the hypocrisy of things in the same way you could before. So yeah, you're really starved of comedy on many levels.
Yes, yes, that's very true. That's it, man. That is it. Um, yeah, Sam always likes to say because now we have. I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. I don't. It's probably neither. But we're they say that we're the wait, how do you say it? Where the wild things roam, because it's like considered this outlaw place, which is funny because we're totally a family friendly restaurant. If a family needs, I mean, nobody should be in here after 9 o'clock with kids, but if they have to go use the bathroom upstairs and they see some of the stuff that's going on, it's pretty nuts. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's comedy, man. We're making it's jokes. I mean, it's crazy that we have to watch what people have to watch what they say, especially with art. It's nuts. It's nuts. And you know what? To a degree, I will say that there was a time where I got caught up for a little second, got caught up with analyzing things, analyzing, let's say, sketches or things, and then kind of putting into conspiratorial thing. I don't know how that I even allowed that to happen for the week it happened in my life, to have people showing me skits and being like, "Oh, this person is a Luciferian or some shit," and I go back and I think about it, it's fucking comedy. I would have done the same shit. I would have done the same shit to make you laugh. I will do anything. I would. Nothing's off limits when it comes to laughter. And it's crazy. It's crazy that we live in a world that you can't. You have to watch what you say so much. Now, I don't think you should be hurting people's. I'm all about hurting people's feelings, and I say this all the time. Like, with all the crazy comics that have come through here, I haven't felt any bad intentions from anyone. Never. And if I did, I probably wouldn't have them back. I could pick up on energy, man. I'm a weird hippie. I'm so, it's like I got that, I pick up on energy right away, and I could shake your hand and I know I have a pretty good idea of who I'm dealing with. And some of the people that you would think are the most vile, I don't mean you guys, I just mean people that would think are the most vile, don't agree with what they're saying, are some of the nicest humans I've ever met. Ever. It's so weird how it goes that way. That like the dirtiest seem to be the nicest off stage and the kindest. It's so strange. I've heard that said before, and I can tell you it's true. Now, there's some I haven't met that I've heard different about, but that's all hearsay. I don't know. Anybody that's come through this place has been awesome, and they've all been, it's great, and we don't censor speech here. We really don't. Now, what I was getting at, I missed my point, is that the young kids heard that about me, so they drop tons of F-bombs and all the homophobic and all that stuff, and it's like, what did you think, Mike? And I'm like, I don't know, you just said a bunch of shit on stage. You didn't that wasn't funny. I mean, I'm not into shock jocks. If you could make those words work and put together an unbelievable set, make everyone laugh, you did your job. But if you're going to go up there and just yell all kinds of slurs and things like that, yeah, that's not. So I think they've gotten it now, but we used to have mics. That would happen a lot. And it was like, oh, we have open mics here. That would happen a lot. Guys thinking that's what I'm looking for. It's not at all. I mean, I love clean comics as well. It has nothing to do with, I just don't censor the speech.
Clean comics are great. I mean, they're so hard to find too. Like, but the good ones are good. From what I've seen. And I'm a huge stand-up comedy fan, and so I would agree with your patron that said comedy is important right now, and I would agree because I think people are looking for authenticity, and good comics are authentic people, and people can see that. You can tell. I mean, when a comic is bad, everybody knows because not being authentic most of the time. So
very true. That's very true.
But even as a service to society, comedians very often bring up uncomfortable things to light to talk about, and when you don't talk about things, you drive them underneath the surface. When you're not talking about pedophilia, you go back to 50 years ago when it becomes a silent truth and it's a popular thing, and then nothing's getting done about it. So yeah, it's a terrifying thing because, I mean, from a very base aspect of society, the people that are willing to talk about things, there's a reason why your club is popular. I mean, people need to be exposed to those things. When you're not, I mean, it's detrimental.
Yeah, Adam, that's spot on, man. That's spot on. It's funny because like I think the only reviews I got to start working on my reviews. The only reviews we have are like the couple, like 2 or 3 of people that walked. We call walked them out because they just didn't expect what they were getting themselves into. So I've learned to certain shows. I know like we have a title of what we call it, dysfunctional or something crazy, so they have an idea of what they're getting themselves into. But yeah, it's kind of funny to me. Any of the people that have written something like it was, it's always about the comic or something. So you still get the Karens or whatever. But I'll handle them. That's my job. That's totally my job to take care of the customers, make them feel good, and hopefully they don't walk out too bad in too much of a. It happens. I mean, sometimes it happens where people are just so offended. It's kind of hilarious. I don't know. Are you guys familiar with Rich Voss?
Vaguely. The name sounds.
So Rich Voss is a legend of comedy especially from this area, right? From the Opie and Anthony era. I don't know where the hell his politics are. I mean, he's a Jewish guy. I don't think he's not at all a racist or any of that stuff. I mean, he's like Patrice O'Neal's best friend, whatever. But the guy is just he's a savage on stage. And it was I'll never forget this day. It was the day after the election, right? Where I was saying it was the day we didn't have a president. Nobody knew who the president was, right? I thought it was going to be a fun time to have a show. It turned out to be a very weird time to have a show, but the show must go on, right? So I had this awesome lineup crafted. It was like a showcase style show, and Rich and Aaron Berg were on the show, and there was a couple other really amazing comics. But this woman decided it was going to be her show, and like, telling every comic how she felt about every joke, how she was so offended. So Rich finally gets on, and the security is really just a couple comics that work here, but security is ready to throw her out. Rich goes, no. He goes, we're going to put her in the corner like a bad little kid. And he sat the woman in the corner of the room. Now, remember, this is like when we were only doing like 30 people would be a sellout. So there's tons of space. This woman's sitting and she's still kind of going. It was it was the first time a Karen type heckler was actually kind of funny. And he just sat her in the corner. I've never seen anything like it. And the poor husband, he talked to me after the show and he was like, yeah, you had these comics on that I've never seen on one bill. I had to come and I'm so sorry. My wife, destroyed this show. I'm like, nah, it's fine. But it's just, it's crazy how offended people get these days. It's really nuts.
All right. Question number 3. What book has been most influential in your life and why?
That's a pretty easy question for me, guys. The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz changed my life. I wanted to research when it was written. I want to say it was the 90s, late 90s. Going through some shit. My mom left it by my mother left it by my nightstand. She's like, I just read this book. It's amazing. And, I didn't pay attention. And then back then you didn't have as much stuff to dull you out, right? You didn't have as much TV and crap. So I couldn't sleep one night, picked it up and started reading it and couldn't put it down. I read that book at least once a year to remind myself. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the 4 Agreements, but it's a game for me. It's a game changer. I've been lucky enough to have, I think I've 3 or 4 times I've done seminars with Miguel and his family, and just amazing stuff. I mean, if I could run real quick what those 4 agreements are, these I mean, and listen, it sounds like they're so easy, but they're so hard. But they're so simple, yet if you can master them, man, you're gonna have a good life. So the first one is be impeccable with your word. The second one is don't take things personally. The third one is don't make assumptions, and the fourth one is always do your best. Now it sounds so simple. Now he's got beautifully written chapters on each one of these. Just an amazing. He comes from a line of the Toltec, so his grandmother was a Toltec shaman. It's just all of his books, all of Miguel Ruiz's books changed my life. But this 4 Agreement one is just the most important book in my life I've ever read. Like I said, at one of my restaurants, I had a chalkboard where it was written huge. I had an artist, create the 4 agreements in beautiful art in the hallway. And it was really cool because then I know some of his fans would pull me aside, and it was almost like a little. It was cool just it was really more for me to remind myself, because it was a time in my life when I didn't know what was going. I was having a rough time, so I could just see it every day, right there, boom, and hopefully it influenced some people. Now he's Mexican, so I think the original was written in Spanish. So I always keep a copy in English and Spanish, because most of the kitchen staff I work with, for the most right now, are Mexican. For the last, I'd say, 10 years, I've worked mostly in Mexican kitchens. So I've given that book out so many times in English or Spanish. I always have a couple in my bag just ready to hand out. Almost gave away my signed copy one time. That wasn't too good. But yeah, but I just love that book. I just love that book.
How old were you when you read it?
Can I cheat and see when it came out? Because I want to say it was 17 or 18.
It was published in 1997. It was actually
There you go. Perfect. 17.
Graham Dunlap, one of the OG hosts of 13 Questions. This was one of his answers when he did 13 Questions. But
yeah,
I have not read it, but I want to. But go ahead.
Yeah, please read it. Everyone should read it, and then audiobook, have it playing. I just highly recommend the book to anyone. I can't see it. I can just see it helping anybody. It's just it's a book I recommend constantly. I hurt myself, like all of his books have resonated with me. Like I said, I was lucky enough. I don't think he does appearances anymore. He's having some health issues and getting a little older. His son has taken over, and Junior's phenomenal also. There was a time when his dad would just kind of come out and wave, and he had a stroke. So it was very hard for him to talk for a long period of time. But just being in his presence, man, very cool to be in this man's presence. When I say seminars, it was more of almost ceremonies. It would be a little bit of speaking a lot of speaking in the beginning, and then the end of the day, we do all kinds of. I never did any plant medicines with him, but meditations and different building exercises with strangers, and it just, dude, I just feel so blessed that I was able to spend time with him while he was around. And the book just changed my life, man. Hopefully someday I could get his son on my podcast. I would love to talk to Junior. I've interacted with him quite a few times. This kind of inspired me to reach out to him again.
Yeah, I love, for some reason, the be impeccable with your word. It's stuck out to me. Maybe it's because I've been doing other, I'm always seeking truth and doing research and whatnot. But we use words to cast spells, don't we?
Absolutely.
So I think that's something that's important to think about.
No.
Absolutely. And Miguel will speak about that as well, about your spells, and be careful with your words. And man, like I said, I am not even close. I have not mastered these 4 at all, but it's just a good reminder. It's a good reminder. I think until I read that book, that's part of being impeccable with your words, that self-talk, the stuff that you just beat yourself up constantly saying, whatever. But yeah, it's a work in progress. Like I said, it seems so simple. When I was 17 and read this book, it was like, it's pretty easy. Then you start actually trying to do it and realize, oh shit, this is not easy at all. It's a lot harder. But you know what? The book has done its job, because you're pausing for a second before you say those things, right? Before you say any of your word, how important your word is. You're so right. You're casting spells every time you're speaking, for sure.
Question number 4. What rule do you have for yourself that you never break, and why do you think that it's important?
So this one is another one that's going to go back to my business in the restaurant. I would never ask an employee to do something that I wouldn't do myself. Sometimes things could get gross in a restaurant, right? Kid could throw up, all kinds of things could happen, right? Grease trap. Oh man, an overflowing grease trap, probably one of the worst things you'll ever smell in your life. I will never ask an employee to do something that I wouldn't do myself. And you know what? I would never ask another person. This goes like that 4 walls thing. It goes into my life as well. I would never ask a person to do something for me that I wouldn't do myself. That's a big one for me. The other thing is I try to treat every person the same. I really do. I try to treat, and this is, in comedy and back in music. If you're an open micer or you're a headliner selling out a theater, I treat everyone. I really try to treat every person the same. Now I know some people might. I've heard things said that maybe they feel I treat them a certain way or whatever. That's probably just because I was busy. I'm so busy here, but I really truly try to treat my dishwasher the same as I treat my general manager here. And those are people that are with me all the time, and they know that's true. There's no, I treat every person's a person. I tell them all the time. As soon as I walk out of this building, I'm not a boss. I'm just a regular guy. I'm not your boss. I'm just your boss because we only need it for structure. We only need it for structure. It doesn't make me better than you at all. There's no human on this earth is better than another human. And that's, maybe because my grandparents were immigrants and struggled, and I saw the way they were treated. Maybe that's where that comes from. But yeah, man, I just all the status and all that makes no difference to me. I just try to treat every person the same.
Yeah, it's very, golden rule, right? Treat others, you treat yourself.
Yeah.
Question number 5. If I were to ask your best friend, what is the one thing they would say you need to work on the most and why?
I mean, I hear this from my very good friends. I hear this all the time. So it's got to be it is, stop beating yourself up. Don't be so hard on yourself. I am a pro at beating the shit out of myself. I am a pro at overanalyzing. I'll use comedy as an example again. If we have 5 nights of comedy and 4 of the shows were a sellout, I'll be talking about the one that only got 30 people, and will not stop thinking about why did only 30 people? What did I do wrong? I'm also the executive chef here, right? For the most part, most things don't come back. But if a burger comes back, I'm thinking about that one burger and why the person not like it. Or I hang out by the dish a lot when we're busy, the dishwashing station. And if I'll see a burger with only a couple of bites, now the employees know that I'm a little nuts, and they'll say, "No, it's a little kid, I swear." Then I'll go out and look, and if it was a big person, I'll go, "Hey, is everything okay?" And I will think about that, and it's not a good thing at all because that's breaks some of the 4 agreements we just talked about. I mean, but yeah, I'm the king of being a critic of myself, and I'm shocked that I even do podcasts. I don't really watch them back because I probably would never do another one. But yeah, man, I'm my own worst critic, and to a fault. And I hear it all the time. My friends that actually care about me, they're constantly telling me, "Be easy on yourself. Stop beating yourself up." That's got to be it. Maybe there's something else, but that's what I'm thinking they would tell. I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I mean, I have to remind myself to be kind to myself. And sometimes it's hard to do because how do you do that, right? It's very personal. Like, how you got to figure that out, right?
Yeah. I mean, I actually asked a friend of mine that. I said to her, I said, like, I don't even know, like, what does that mean? And she's like, "When was the last time you went to the doctor to have a checkup?" I'm like, "I have no idea." She's like, that. I'm like, "Oh shit, you're right. Maybe I should." So sometimes it's just as simple as, go seeing a doctor, getting your hair cut, like little things that sometimes I think guys don't think about. They think about, self-care, let's say, or self-love is like more of a woman's like vain thing, right? Or getting their nails done or whatever, but sometimes it's just as simple as, going and getting a massage. Not that I do that a lot, but probably should sometimes, but, or whatever it is, something very simple. It could be as simple as just going and getting my eyes checked at the eye doctor. That's doing something for yourself. And that's some self-care. And, at least that's what I'm learning for myself. That's some ways to slow that, to be kind to yourself.
Something that I've recently come across, and this is after reading Reality Transurfing and doing a book club that Owen Hunt actually put on. It was a 10-week course on reality transurfing, and I came away with connecting a food that you ate when you were somewhere in your childhood where you felt that the world was truly taking care of you. So you felt, secure and content and happy and all this stuff. And so if you're able to connect, a food to that feeling and that time and place in your life. Like every time you eat that food, you can recall that feeling, and that's kind of can be self-care in that way too. So, do you have like a favorite food since you're a
Oh, I
restaurant?
like that, man. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So, someone else just taught me that seems so simple. Like when you can't go to sleep, gratitude. In my opinion, gratitude is so important, and it just reminded me. It's not, but it's something so simple yet been helping me tremendously. Is like go from A to Z with your gratitude before you sleep, and like I can never get. I'm asleep before Z. Start off A with the clean air I breathe every day, right? Something like that. And just boom, boom. And it's so cool. And then you start thinking about gratitude more. And I like what you just said about the food, man. That's really cool because I get super inspired by my grandmother. And, she's not around. She died very young. She's the best cook in the entire world. I've never seen someone cook like this. And it's all simplicity. And what I learned from her was like simplicity and just really good high quality. Almost everything came out of her backyard. So it was like the highest quality that my grandfather would grow. And it was simple, yet the food was amazing. And she passed away when I was like 17 or something. Had a lot of good time with her, but I wasn't in the culinary part of my life. I was so deep in the music thing at that time. I wasn't even thinking about cooking food. So I've had to recreate some of her recipes through memory. And it's pretty trippy, man. Pretty fucking trippy. Like her grilled vegetables. Like she would make these grilled vegetables and she always just had them on the table. They were just always on a jar on the table with some bread. Like it was just always like almost, I guess we call it an appetizer, but it was just always there. And I call her Mima. We would call her Mima. I'm like, how did Mima make those? And nobody would know. No one had the recipe. And I realized that she was using mint. I started like thinking in my head, okay, what was in the garden? There's something in there that didn't make any sense and it was mint. So her there was a bunch of other stuff in there, but and everyone thinks with Italian, it's all balsamic vinegar. She didn't use much. I don't think she used any balsamic vinegar ever. It was always like probably white and red vinegars, things that you wouldn't think. Because remember, this is like people that were struggling. They didn't, that's probably like a luxury back, balsamic vinegar. I don't think unless my grandfather had it from his old wine or something. I don't know. But I never remember it. I don't remember that. I remember that as a later thing. I don't remember that on her kitchen at all. So yeah, I go back and I try to. That's really, really. It blows my mind that I could do that, and it kind of reminded me what you were saying about the food. Same thing with smells. I don't know about you guys with smells. Sometimes I'll get a smell and I'll go right back to high school or right back to. That's another trippy thing. That's go back to your childhood or whatever, just from some scent that you didn't think about. It's wild how that lights up in your brain. And food for sure. Absolutely. Food could do the same thing. I mean, especially me, I was a overweight child. So
I like the A to Z gratitude for the sleep technique. I'm going to have to try that.
Dude, I love it. I've only been doing it for about 2 weeks, I would say. My friend said that, taught me of it, and I love it. And it's like, I think only once I got down to Z. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna try that and maybe report back on the show. We'll see.
Nice.
All right. Question number 6. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Creatively, I get turned on by live music. And not all live music. Few bands used to be DJs, raves, things like that. I'm way too old. You won't see me in a rave or a festival, and I don't want to ever be that guy. But yeah, they're like, I just went to go see Tool a couple weeks ago, and like that's a band that has inspired me my entire life. I saw them the first time in 1996 at Lollapalooza, and I never looked back. And every time I leave a Tool, it's cool too because you don't. It's not something that happens frequently, right? So there's some bands that I will go see, and I've seen 70, 80 times. And they inspire me, but it's a different inspiration when I go to see a band like Tool who's not around as much. And it's like, it leaves this, I come out of those shows so inspired and so ready just to create. It really gets my juices flowing whenever I get to watch those guys on stage together. And it happens. So it used to happen a lot with me when, certain DJs and electronic live performances for sure. Like I said, it's been years, but I would leave raves super inspired. notebook ready. So I used when I was, now we have our phones. When I was a kid, I used to bring a little notepad with me and write as the music was going on, writing ideas, different stuff that I was, coming to me because it will flow. I call them downloads as I get older, but sometimes I don't know what happens when I hit this state, but I hit a state where it's like I just start getting these download of information where it's almost too much sometimes. And it seems that occurs when I'm watching a live music that I really like or somebody that's super tuned in. Now, who knows? Maybe Tool might be doing something with frequencies. Who the hell knows? I heard Owsley Stanley say that about the Dead, that they were tapping into something that they didn't even realize what they were doing. So who knows? Maybe that's what's going on. As far as like you're saying spiritually, I mean that could happen also spiritually with music, and then just another way, man, it's just being in nature. Walking in nature and seeing something as beautiful as a sunset or being in the mountains and stuff that inspires me as well. It's a different inspiration I get, but that's another inspiring setting for me.
Yeah, Tool has kind of a special place in my heart, just because I had a friend growing up in high school who passed away, whose his favorite band was Tool, and my future wife to be, her favorite band is Tool. We had
Nice.
tickets to go see them, and then shit hit the fan, and that show got canceled. But anyway, I think I was reading that I think Maynard and the other guy, like one of them writes the music, and then the other guy writes the lyrics, and they do it separately.
Yes.
So like, there's got to be some like they're tapping into some plugging in something somewhere, right?
Yeah, I mean Danny's not so right before you had the internet. It was all speculation, right? They just dropped these videos, and you don't before you'd really get to dive. But now, like Danny, I don't think Danny is even he's out there about like the different stuff he uses, the sigils, and he's into. He's into I know the occult's a dirty word. I don't look at it as a dirty word, but people do. But he's tapped into that, and those guys are wizards. And yeah, Maynard does his vocals and his lyrics somewhere else. He gets I from what I was told, he gets the song or the whatever snippets of the song, and he starts getting inspired and writing.
Yeah, I didn't know that they were on tour again, so I'm gonna have to try to.
Yeah, they're on tour as we speak.
All right, question number 7. What was the most embarrassing or humbling experience of your life?
I'm kind of a goofball, so we have a ton of these. As a child, like if you want to get serious and sad, as a child, I was overweight, right? I was a fat kid. And being a fat kid in the 80s is a lot different than being a fat kid nowadays because, even if I show my kids my pictures, they're like, you weren't fat. But in the 80s, I was fat. Couldn't buy regular clothes. I couldn't have the cool kid clothes. I couldn't have, if I wanted the Hulk Hogan shirt, they didn't make it in my size. So I had to go to like special stores to get my clothes, which nowadays I think it's pretty most kids are just overweight. This, it's not that that's right, but it just is what it is, right? Our food is pretty much poison right now. So that was very embarrassing, and that was rough as a kid, it really was. Now I could tell you a really embarrassing story that happened. That was more funny that happened, I don't know, 10 years ago or so. I used to drink, and I used to like to drink. So I was pretty, I was feeling really good. It was my mother's wedding. She was getting remarried, and it was New Year's Eve. We were in some nice tent. It's beautiful. You could see the Hudson River, and they're doing a toast, right? So like her family's standing next to her, and they're having this long speech and toast. And like I said, I was feeling kind of good, and stick my hand out, right? And I go and give my wife a nice little grab of the ass, and then I might even went like in a little bit, right? Like a little in there, a little more than I probably, And then all of a sudden, my hand gets smacked from the side. And I look, and my wife goes, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh!" And it's an older woman, and my wife's hysterical. She's like, "What the fuck are you doing, you psycho?" And I'm like, "Oh my God." I ran off the stage, and the lady didn't. The crazy part is like, I really got in there too. And the lady didn't really even budge. And it was like an older woman. I couldn't go back into the room. I ran out. I hung out. Back then, I was still smoking cigarettes. I'm just smoking cigarettes, and I'm just like, I was so fucking embarrassed. So out of my character too. I mean, I'd do it to my wife, kind of thing, but I would never grab a stranger. I was like, oh my god, I was too embarrassed to even say sorry to the woman. Um, it's borderline assault, man. Um, but that was pretty fucking embarrassing and humbling. Humbling is, I had as far as a humbling experience goes, I had this restaurant bar. That was my first time I had my own place, my first business I built, and probably too young to have this thing, and but it was doing really, really well. I mean, it takes a couple of years for a restaurant to really turn profit, but we're in our second year. We're getting there, right? The writing's on the wall. I mean, we're packed. We're breaking records. I honestly have never actually achieved volume success like that since that time. And we're on the weight every night of the week. I mean, it was nuts. It was really, really crazy. Back then, my passion was MMA, so we would show all the styles of MMA, and that came into a big thing where fighters would come, and it was just like this. It was exactly what I mean, it's nothing what I would want now because it was a real bar, right? It was a real, like, we're smoking cigarettes on the patio till 2:30 in the morning every night of the week. They're doing shots every night of the week. Nothing what I would want now, but then it was my goal, and I achieved it. And that whole thing was taken from me in a day. If you guys remember Hurricane Irene, I don't know if it was a big deal for you guys, but it put 6 feet of water in my entire restaurant. So the whole restaurant, when I tell you, from the bar, I mean, everything was underwater. Everything was underwater. So every piece of equipment, and then I was closed for 3 months. So it was talk about being on top of the world and almost there to, like, okay, like I said, I wasn't there. I wasn't rich by any means, but I was seeing, okay, I'm about to really, really do this. And it got just taken from me so fucking fast. And unfortunately, that whole area, it was kind of also in a neighborhood. I mean, now I just actually was in that area today, and it's finally rebuilt now. But even when we came back 3 months later, there was really no people around. I mean, it was a fucking war zone. It was really, really wild to see what happened. And that was, so I got some humble pie that week.
Yeah. Mother Nature can be a force to be reckoned with, especially when, I feel like, me personally, like, I grew up in a city, right? Smallish city, but like, we never went camping, and so you're not exposed to the elements, and when it rushes in like that and it just wipes out everything. I did go down and help with Katrina after the Katrina thing happened in Louisiana. I was in high school, but so I did see that a little bit. But yeah, it's pretty scary.
Yeah, and it was very, I remember Katrina as well, and I was trying to help, and I didn't go down there, but I totally remember that. And it felt like in this little area of the world, it was like a Katrina. It was wild. Very, 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 yeah. And it's nuts, man, when you realize that Mother Nature just could take everything. It's humble. It's a very humble experience when you realize that Mother Nature, especially at that time, I was in my 20s. You think you're invisible.
She's going to do what she wants.
She'll do whatever she wants, man. You have no say in that.
Question number 8. What is your greatest fear, and how did you overcome it, if you have?
My greatest fear is, I'm saying this wrong. I'll say the apocalypse. I know that the true meaning of the apocalypse is not what I'm getting at, so maybe I'll call it end times. End times are my greatest fear. And not to bring this thing too far down, but I was under the towers on 9/11. So I suppressed that for years and acted like it was nothing. It just, I was just there. I just happened to run from the debris. Then I realized that was where all my trauma came from, and I was just trying to be a tough guy and pretend like, oh yeah, so what? I saw all that, and just not talk about it. And I realized that was my big trauma. And obviously, from that, it sparked, like, every next event is like, it's coming. I've had many, like I said, the downloads. I've had downloads of information where, maybe something's going to get crazy and it freaks me out. I've done quite a bit of psychedelics and psychedelic in all types of settings, from just at a concert or a rave. Then I've also done them, with shamans all over the world. And recently I've been getting a lot of, almost like to the point where I'm not sure if I'm not ready to take more. I get this information of like the end times, and it fucking scares the shit out of me. But I realize that I have no control over what's going to happen. I have no control over what's going to happen. If it's going to go, it's going to go. If society is going to collapse, what am I going to do? When I was going through some hard times and just starting to figure out that's what was going on, constantly thinking about the end of the world, or I was convinced 2012 was that for a while, right? So I lived very recklessly up to 2012 because I really just thought it was going to be over then. Not really sure. Maybe something did happen since then. The world does seem quite different since that time period, but who knows? It's definitely not the way I was thinking the end of the world would be, right? What I'm scared of, I'm scared of, just whatever, famine, whatever, a nuclear attack, whatever it could be. But when I was really going through it, I was talking to this guy. He was like, I guess you almost call him like a therapist. He was more like a counselor, whatever you want to say. And I was just talking about and he said to me, Mike, I'm not going to promise you that this isn't going to happen. Shit, I have those fears myself. But what you need to do you trust your intuition? Do you trust your gut that if the shit hits the fan, you'll do the right thing for you and your family? Like you'll do the best you can? And I was like, yeah. And that little bit of advice, it calms it down sometimes. Right now, what's going on in the world, which I don't know, we don't know. I don't know what the hell, but what I'm seeing, and I try to stay, not to be too plugged into what's going on, because it would drive me nuts. But I realized that I have to trust my intuition. That I'll do the best I can if something does happen. And the other thing is at the end of the day, man, just like we were just talking about Mother Nature, so that's a force way greater than ourselves, or if there's a source greater than ourselves, like we have no control over that. We just have to trust in our instinct, and we got to trust in if you're one of those people that has a higher power, you trust in a higher powered universe or whatever, that whatever's going to happen, you're going to be okay. And I can't tell you that I'm 100%. That's how I calm myself, soothe myself a little bit. But it flares up, it still flares up every once in a while. I'm not embarrassed to say that. It took me years to not be embarrassed to say that. But yeah, that's, that's my big fear.
That just kind of reminds me of circling back to question one of just, the four walls, like you were saying, like, just be, what you have control over, and that's what you need to worry about, right? If an asteroid hits, you probably won't be around too much longer to worry.
Yeah. The asteroid hits, I want to be right underneath it.
Oh yeah, I want to see that. It'll be the best show ever. Question number 9. What is your greatest driving force in life, and how do you further it?
This one's kind of simple. It's my family. It's my kids, my family. That's what gets me going. That's what makes me work so hard. That's why I put in the hours I do to try to give them a life that they could, the best life I can give to them. And, they're everything to me. But it's not just my kids. I also feel like, if I could influence my children the right way, they'll have a bigger impact on other kids. And, I just feel like all the young generations are kind of my driving force, right? Like, I don't know. We're so disconnected right now. So many kids are raised by their phones, right? And if there's any way I can jump in to kind of disrupt that a little bit, So that's my driving force. My kids, but I would say younger generations. Same thing with young comics. I really try to be an influence on their life and try to help them, because that's all we got, right? Are the younger ones, because we know our parents, let's say, or the generation above us, I mean, they did a shit job for this world. So if we can influence the young ones and show them, I don't know, just show them how things could be done a lot in a better way. That's a driving force. Not to get all hippy dippy, but like the whole Rainbow Warrior Hopi prophecy, these indigo children, crystals, like that always resonated with me when I'd hear elders talk about that. And you gotta be careful. I'm not gonna be all of a sudden start hanging out with a bunch of kids, some grown weird hippie guy, is taking too much acid talking to your kids. But there's a way that I could ripple that effect by, like I said, taking care of my kids, instilling certain things. Maybe my weird way of life will rub off, and my kids will talk about it to their friends and influence them. Same thing, like I said, with the younger comics. If I can give them a little perspective, so the younger generation is my driving force to do what I'm doing and to just keep on track. Especially, like I said, as simple as just my family. At the end of the day.
I find it interesting that you mentioned the indigo children, because that is, I had mentioned reality transurfing earlier by Vadem Zealand. He actually talks about the indigo children in the book. And I think, if I remember correctly, we touched on it briefly in the Dr. Berlando episode of 13
Nice.
Questions. But the indigo children, from the way I understand it, refers to a group of people that started to incarnate here on Earth in somewhere in the 70s, right? So it could be from 70s onward.
Yes.
So, like that, in that, it is kind of a balancing of a cosmic balancing of the forces or something like that, right? It's like a necessary reaction to whatever is going on in the state, in the state of the world, the state of affairs of the world finds itself into. So yeah, I think that there might, I don't know. I'm just learning about this myself, and it keeps popping up. So there might be something to it.
So my driving force, though, really is like to be there for the. Like, I don't think I'm an indigo, but I think I'm there for the indigos, and they'll come to me, and I could try to help, the best I can, guide them, because it's real fucking easy to take that indigo and throw a screen in front of his or her face or whatever else, feed them with all this garbage and destroy that beautiful gifts that they were given. And, maybe label them as whatever you want to label them on some kind of spectrum or whatever you want to do. And, so that whole thing you're talking about, that is a big driving force. Before I even had children, I just kind of knew that was my calling, was to be there for these beings that are being incarnated. I know I could be real normal. I could also be real, get out there, guys. But, I'm sure you know what you're getting with me, at least a little bit.
Yeah. Adam, do you know anything about these indigo children at all?
Yeah, no, I've heard a lot about it, but I'm not real in depth on it.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit more, I guess. I don't know. How do you find out if you're one? Can you
Well, I mean, listen, there's all kinds of stuff you can find online. Then again, I haven't researched them online in years. I know the internet is so different nowadays than it used to be. But if you guys are more savvy than me, you'll find tons of information. I've been taught. I've read it online, but I've also been taught just listening to just elders and them preaching on it and talking about all these different beings. They even talk about crystals and diamond children, and it's all of these beings, like you said, being incarnated for this big event that's happening, that's supposed to happen.
Right. Sounds like some homework I have to do then.
Yeah, check it out. It's great.
Yeah, there's certain personality and hallmark traits of just, ways of thinking or IQ that go along with it. Yeah, haven't heard it in a while. Heard stuff on like maybe some old Art Bell episodes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. Question number 10. Who are or were your role models and why?
My dad. It's like I said, it's kind of odd that I talk to my father so much in this podcast. That normally doesn't happen on a podcast, but yeah, my dad. He's a self-made guy. Comes from a big family, immigrants that came here from Italy. From the war. Um, left Italy from the war and came here to start a family. And I mean, literally came from nothing. I mean, so he's my biggest role model. He's a pretty good guy. Also, he's always taught me about, he always would say to me, because when I was a little younger and maybe getting mixed up with the wrong crowds or whatever, he'd always say I could put my head on my pillow and go to sleep at night, and never thinking about somebody I fucked over or something, because I know I never did it. And once again, another thing, that time of perspective, right? When he would just tell me that, sometimes I thought it was corny, especially when I was being indoctrinated with gangster rap and all that stuff. Was supposed to be, all right, you're supposed to be this tough guy, all this crap. That's not cool. They're not fuck people over. They're not, So now that as an older man, I realize, as I'm getting older, I realize he was a big role model in my life. And he's taught me a lot. He's taught me about hard work. Like I said, taught me about treating people a certain way. He's 100% Italian guy. We have this stereotype of being prejudiced and racist. Never have heard the man say anything like that ever in his life. So he's a very good role model, and I hope to be the same for my children. And like I said, a hardworking guy, and the whole nine. Typical. Got tons of those stories, right? Of him having to come in here with nothing. I mean, very, very small house with 5 children in it. My grandfather was a carpenter. Came over here, didn't make much money, and very cool to see. I mean, that's truly the American dream. My dad did the American dream. I'm not sure, it's inspiring. It's inspiring. Definitely a little different times than it was when he was doing things, but it's still inspiring. And besides the success he had, it's more of just how to be a man, how to be a person. That he's more of my role model for that than the actual success, however you want to measure that with money, let's say, or whatever. That part, whatever. Way more inspired by him, of how he just taught me how to treat people and how to just live my life to be a good person.
That's awesome. Do you still have ties over to in Italy?
Yeah, we have a lot of cousins still there.
Mainly, what's going on? Like with the whole craziness, is everything like I like to get my news from first source, as close to the source as possible. Like what's do you have any insight into that?
I don't speak the language. My father does, so he's way more in contact with his cousins and his uncles. He goes there a lot. All I know is that unemployment is horrible, that no one's working, that most of the families are all living together, right? That a lot of people aren't in their 20s and 30s, and it's like they have to stay together because unemployment's so high. I've heard that. As far as I feel like my father could go a little bit down that conspiratorial, but my family in Italy, I think they're, from what I get, I don't talk to them much. My father does, but from what the little bit I got, or the memes that they might send him or something, I think they might be brainwashed by mainstream media. So I don't know if you're going to get a true. I don't know if I'll be able to get you a true what's really going on. I don't have like that cool cousin. Or maybe I do. I just don't know that knows what's going on. It's just more like older, that people that are totally brainwashed.
Well, just hearing that some families are living together, like that gives a whole lot of perspective to people here. I mean, at least, I think the majority of Americans have their own dwelling, right? They're not sharing dwellings with other families. So
it's becoming more popular with how crazy the economy is becoming, and inflation and all that crap. You're seeing more and more. I tell my kids they can stay forever. I don't care. You guys can stay in this house forever if you want to. But yeah, it's it's supposedly very, very the economy, from what I've heard, is very tough out there.
All right. Question number 11. What quality do you most admire in a woman?
So for me with a woman is I really admire a strong woman. That's probably the number. Like I really am attracted to a strong woman, but I need the balance of a nurturing woman as well. And sometimes I've dated a few very strong, smart women, but they have zero nurturing at all, right? None of that motherly stuff because they're just so hyper focused on their career, let's say, if that makes them strong, or position of power, or whatever it is. So that's the quality. Like strong, like I really admire a woman that's like not scared to go, let's say, shovel snow, you know, or you know, it, I don't know, like a woman that's not scared to go take a jujitsu class. You know, I like that in a woman. I don't. I think it's very important. I think I have very strange views on where we're headed with divine feminine and all that stuff. I do feel like there's a shift in the energy and the shift what's going to happen. And I believe there's going to be a lot of strong women, and not strong women how I don't have to say society or being force fed. I think is a little bit of bullshit. Not what I'm trying to say. Like there's a strong woman thing that's like a man hating. I don't know. I feel like the mainstream paints a narrative of a strong woman that's not what I'm exactly speaking on. If that makes any sense to you guys, but I know it could be a little confusing, but I guess it's like it's also kind of people get a little upset about this topic, and I don't mean it. I mean everything like with the best intentions. Like, I know it sounds chauvinistic sometimes when I'm talking about this, but what I'm actually really saying is I feel that I got this at a heavy download one time that like everything is flipping, and it's like the roles are going to be reversed where the women are going to take over again and the men are going to go back to the hunting, the providing. And I know sometimes that can be people can get upset with that, and I don't mean it in a because they've also been programmed to think a certain way. But I've also had my meditation teacher, she's a woman from India, she says you're right on track. That's right. I've had some actually almost most of the shamans that I've worked with are female. I've told them in the most gentle way, and they're like, "No, you're right." But if I was to write that on Twitter or try to get my point across, I would probably get devoured. But I do think that's and I feel like that's probably why I'm attracted to a strong yet nurturing woman, because a woman is a mother, right? So that's got to be kind of, for me, that's what I look, and I think that comes to me because of this whole shift that I think is coming very soon.
I mean, I would agree with you that the I think that we are going to see a resurgence in the divine feminine. It has been censored. We can see that, the obfuscation of Mary within the Catholic Church, and just I mean, we could go on and on. I'm sure with this question, but yeah, I can see. I think that you're right. I think I've been hearing the same things from other people that. Something's going to get balanced, something, realign or whatever.
Yeah.
Question number 12. What is the most courageous thing that you have ever done or seen in your life?
Now, this one was hard for me to think about. I mean, I would say going through some of the different plant medicine ceremonies, pretty courageous. Been through some pretty extreme stuff. 2 days Aboga was pretty intense, life changing, but very intense. I every couple times per year I'll go through a combo ceremonies. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the combo. Is a sapo tree frog. It's the venom the shaman will burn into you, and that's very intense. But I've built a relationship with the frog that I'm still scared of it every single time. And I mean, the medicine woman that performs it on me always says that I'm really brave, really courageous for doing this. I've been through some crazy ayahuasca, yahe, peyote ceremonies that have lasted for days. And I look back and I kind of just did it. And I did almost all of them, other than one I did with my wife alone. Where I just get off on a plane and okay, you're gonna meet. Eventually, these people became my tribe, became my family. But in the early days, it was like my friend told me, okay, here's this person, just go. And I was just with a backpack, just go and meet these people. And like I said, these have become very, very close friends. Like I said, they're like my tribe now. But that's pretty courageous when I look back. I don't know. Now that I'm like 40 years old, I'm like, I don't know if I would do that. Right. I definitely wouldn't. I wouldn't. Now I know these people, so I met, but it's pretty courageous of me that I took that step quite a few times. And some of them were pretty hardcore. The most courageous thing I ever witnessed, and unfortunately, I don't know if it's unfortunate. Well, I guess it's very unfortunate, but I don't know, my perspective. But on 9/11, I feel like the untold story is just the regular people. Like I saw a guy who I would just assume, I don't know, but I'm assuming he was a stoop drug dealer, right? I would just daydream. I was going to school in Manhattan during the time. So and it was the end. It was my last class I was going to ever take in the New York restaurant school. And I would just gaze and people watch, right? A city block in New York City is very interesting. It's like this alive thing. So like if you were bored, so there was like a couple guys that I was assuming, right? They sat on a stoop and people would visit them all day, right? Just assuming. But when that shit happened, those guys became crossing guards. Literally got in the street and were crossing guards for, the police and everyday regular people running to the fire. The fire station right across from us, I don't think anyone survived. That I would stare and watch these. So those guys are super courageous. I don't believe any of them. I think that was the one that got hit the hardest. I could look it up, but that was what I would stare at most of the time. So yeah, there was. It's pretty amazing to see how courageous some people were. I was 20 years old, and I got too close. And when they came down with the rubble, I ran. I ran away, and for a while that bothered me. But I did some kind of work with a therapist, and she said to me, it was really. She's like, you were a kid and you weren't trained. You had zero training. What were you going to do to help anyone? So that kind of helped. Getting that message to me. But yeah, I saw a lot of courageous people that I don't know if they had training or whatever, and they were just helping the best they could. People making up. I remember we didn't have the smartphone, so we were huddling around cars to listen to what's going on in the news. I thought we were getting invaded, because you saw fighter jets and stuff. I didn't know if it was another country. We had no idea. We were, making it up as we go along. The phones did not work. I talked to my mother for 1 second, just when the first plane hit, and then there was no phone. There was people making poster board signs about, donating blood, go this way. I mean, people came together real fast, just regular everyday people, like real fucking fast to just do really courageous shit. And I've never seen courage like that ever again in my life.
It gives you hope that, maybe when shit hits the fan, we don't need to rely on a government system, that somehow, the worst won't come out in us, and that other side will kind of ring true.
Yeah. Adam, I think about that a lot, and it was very beautiful. The only beautiful moment I got out of that, but what scares me, and maybe it's just black pill, me thinking too much, but I think once days go by, it might lose its, I don't know. You were in Katrina. You would know. You were there in a war zone for maybe a longer period of time.
Well, you mentioned something to me about being worried about the apocalypse or, a cataclysm. Yeah. That's to me my biggest fear, sun micronova, the worst of the worst, hell on earth, extreme type stuff. But if what you're saying is my fear, it's not so much the event, it's what happens with man-on-man supply. Yeah. But, maybe if the event and the thing is so big that it is way beyond, and it's, such a monumental thing that maybe because it is that, it it becomes something in which people can come together. So I don't know. It's an interesting way to view it, because if it's so monumentous, you're not getting out of it until you're out of it.
Yes. Yeah, man. I think. Listen, I think I play with these thoughts way too much. And what I think, if I was to guess, I would think that it would get a little ugly in the cities. And I think it's important for people to know their neighbors and just get to, because I mean, I could even speak just on like Sandy. Here you go. I'm just thinking about this right now. So when Hurricane Sandy hit, we didn't have power for like close to a month. And the neighbors, we were all, hey, is your generator okay? Here's a line. You know, everyone, most of where I live was oil. At the time was all oil heat. We didn't have natural gas. Do you guys need some diesel? Like, everyone was helping each other. Hey, we had to go to Pennsylvania to get the fuel. I'm going to make the run today. Everyone. And these are people that it brought us together. Unfortunately, most of those people don't live in my neighborhood anymore. They all moved away, but it was interesting how everyone got to know each other and did help each other out. So as much as we're programmed to think humanity is so dark, and it is dark at some points, I do think people always come together. And I think there is always more light than dark, right? So people will come together. I do think cities could get a little wild. You know, Manhattan scares the shit out of me. I was trapped on that island, right? I obviously figured out how to get out, but man, if something else was to happen, like, you can't. How are you getting off? I mean, I was so young and dumb. I was staring at the Hudson and I was about to jump and swim. And the guy next to me goes, "Are you out of? You will not make that." Like, in my 20-year-old mind, I was like, I could easily. I could do that. And the guy's like, "Dude, you're gonna die." So I'm like, "Oh, okay." But people come together. They do. Cities, groups of people. I don't like to go there too much, but I do sometimes, thinking about someone's child starving, they might start doing some crazy shit,
Yeah, that was one thing that did happen after 9/11 was, I saw American flags flying on every single house, down the street.
Oh,
and
man.
it brought people together, and that went away. Like, we don't have that anymore now.
We don't, but you know what? You're really right, Bill, because it in New York City, a place where people, you don't fucking know anybody. No, it doesn't matter how many years, like, you just hustle and bustle and move around. And for a good almost year, there was a niceness in New York City it's never had. And everywhere. I mean, probably the whole country, but it was strange to see in New York. It was strange to see in certain parts of New Jersey, where people are very cold into themselves, where there was a kindness and there was but it's also, we're going on 20 years, like, I thought 9/11 was going to be something that you never joke about. And, people are pulling off some pretty funny 9/11 jokes. Like, I'll chuckle at some of them sometimes. But, it's a long, 20 years is a long time. People forget. A lot of people forget.
It's true. I'm super interested in your experience with Iboga, but maybe we can chat off air.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd be glad to talk about it. I actually have never said that on a podcast. Some people know I went to do some ceremony. I didn't say which one. Yeah, well, I'd love to talk to you about Iboga.
Okay, awesome. Sweet. All right, but for now, question number 13. What does it mean to be a man in today's world?
It kind of goes back to what we were talking about a couple questions ago. For me, and not trying to say this in a chauvinistic way, but for me, a man is the provider. A man goes out and by providing is also protecting his family. And, it's really that simple. That's what I believe a man should be. It doesn't, and I have a feeling that that's where we're going to be headed soon. And it might not be, when I say soon, it might not be like even in my lifetime. Maybe it's in 100 years from now. I just feel like the shift is going to come where we're going to go back to that tribal style of living where, and that's for me, that's it. For me, I'm a provider for my family. I have to provide for them. I got to make sure they're safe. I got to make sure they're taken care of. It doesn't mean that I'm against women working or any of that kind of crap at all. It's just, that's what I believe. That's what I believe it is to be a man. If you could take care of your family, whatever that means too, whatever your family means, it's, I'm not saying it, whatever your family is, but if you provide for it, that's, to me, you're doing some real man shit.
Yeah. Caring. I mean, caring is important.
Mm-hmm.
men have a very specific way of how we care. So, and
Mhm.
we need more of that. I agree. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out. I know you're a busy man to come spend almost 2 hours with us now. I think hour and a half. Did you want to plug anything before we wrap up?
Well, first, I just want to say thank you guys so much for having me on. Really, thank you. I think this podcast is awesome. When you guys hit me up and I looked into it and I saw you, I think this is an amazing show. I love it, and just thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate that. Yeah, people. I have a podcast called the Free Thinker Society with Mike Romanelli. We're on a little bit of a break right now. We're going to start back soon, very, very soon. But, we got over 60 something episodes of all kinds of fun, crazy episodes. And I think next week I'm going to start recording again. So I'll be back on that. And if you want to check out the Dojo of Comedy, that's mine and Sam Tripoli's comedy club. We're out here in New Jersey. You can even make it a destination, guys. Email me. I'm pretty easy to find. Email me and I could show you like very simple hotels right in the area. You don't have to just be from New York, New Jersey. You could catch all kinds of amazing comics out of here and have a really good time. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, next time I'm in the area, I'll hit you up.
Open invitation to you guys anytime.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not too far away. I'm in Michigan, so I can just drive on over, right?
You guys check it out. If you see anybody that you want to see, please let me know. I'll make sure I got tickets for you and give you the VIP treatment.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really
got it, guys.
Really appreciate that.
Well, and again, to say what Bill said, thank you for spending your time with us, especially today. It's the one thing you're never going to get back, and it's worth more than anything. So we do value that. Thank you.
Why is one man rich and another man poor? Why we ain't satisfied? Why we gotta have more? Why your suicide rates on the rent so high? Why I tell you the truth but you say don't lie? Why is being a good father at an all-time low? Why is it acceptable? Yo, why? I don't know. Why she blame him and he blame her? It's useless. Ask yourself this question. Why you making excuses? Why do parents gotta bury their kids? Why we text and drive, not caring how scary it is? Why it's so hard to forgive and leave the past behind? And if you did, then that's divine. Why don't you help your brother when you see him fall? Why do we act like God don't see it all? Why do we call them black, them white, them Asians and use labels? Now that's racism.
I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why?
I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why?
I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why?
I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why?
I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why is there innocent people locked up for life, while some people can't say nothing nice? Why do we always gotta question what all of it means? And why won't you follow your dreams? Tell me why. The night when you took my dad, why'd you let me see my grandpa cry? And tell me why. And why do you choose to hide, even though you was born to fly? And tell me why. And why don't we turn from all the hate? And why don't we learn from all mistakes? Why do I keep on wrecking these fat beats? And teachers don't make more than professional athletes. And why? And why? And why? And why? And why? And why?
I don't wanna Hawaii.
Why?
I don't wanna Hawaii. Why? I don't wanna Hawaii. Hawene Yowa, Hayo Wana Hawene, Hayo Wana Hawene Yowa.
This should be considered entertainment and not therapy. We hope you benefit from our resources available at 13questionspodcast.com. Thank you for listening.